But I am assuming that the Summer Festival Imperil Lucky Draw will be in a little less than 7 hours. So this is unconfirmed. But anyway, we need to go over it anyway because we will be getting it. Well, it is going to come. We did get the banner mind. We just don't know when. But just in case the expected launch date of tonight happens, then... Yeah, those don't have any dates on them for Brizo. Lament of the Hour will be pulled, but we're still gonna get it. They just made a mistake in putting the announcement on their server before it was supposed to be there. So it's still worth it to go over the banners, and that's what we're gonna do here. We do not know if we're going to be getting the OSB single or not. Just because it hasn't been mined doesn't mean we're not getting it. The only way we're not getting it, the only reason to think that we won't be getting it, is if the festival passes and we don't get it. So, we can bitch about it when that time comes. Until then... Alright, so first up, we're going to go by realm. And what I've done here is I made a list because I thought it was important on the Imperil Lucky Draw to highlight the Super Soul Breaks mostly. Because most of the bursts are good at what they do. Almost all of them. It's the supers that are the problem. And even though the banner is dominated by burst soul breaks, as we see on this little page here, we can see the distribution of 19 BSBs and 15 Super Soul Breaks. However, that's still a sizable amount of supers, and there is value we can find in there. And that's what I made the little sheet for, because there is a lot of actually decent Imperils in there that can work on an elemental team because of 5-star and 6-star abilities. So, first up, in Final Fantasy II, we have Guy's Super Soul Break, which isn't that good right now, because the only way you can actually make use of it is to just, Life Siphon, cast it, Life Siphon, cast it. I mean, it's something, but you could be doing a lot better if you had a good ability to exploit an Earth vulnerability with. The thing is, we do have a 5-star Earth ability for Monk currently in the game. However, it's not really a spamming ability. Meteor Rush is a buffing ability, so you don't really want to hone it, because if you hone it now, before this is put in the game, this is a spamming damage ability, you're basically just... You're going to have something that, you're going to use once or twice a battle, and it's going to be on the shelf with, 3 hones. You don't want that. So, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to do that just for Guy's Super Soul Break on an Earth team. Remember, most of these don't become super relevant until the Magicite dungeons get released anyway, and that's going to be in, we're guessing, 3 months from now. It's not a new Guy's Soul Break. Yes, he already has an Earth Imperil, I believe. He does get another Earth Imperil, but that comes later on the Magicite dungeon banners. Yeah, Guy and his Gaia Drum is Imperil Earth, and so is his Burst. Because it is unreleased. Gaia Rush, the 5-star Monk ability, is currently unreleased. There we go. The 5-star Monk ability Gaia Rush is a 2.72 multiplier, not that great. However, it's 4 single attacks, and the multiplier is boosted by the fact that it's a plus 20% critical chance. This is a good spamming damage ability for him to use to exploit weakness and to inflict his Imperil. So I'm going to say that this is probably not a very desirable thing off of this banner, because when Gaia Rush is released, there's going to be better Earth Imperils in the game. So while this is kind of not that bad right now, the problem is it's not that useful right now. So it's kind of a miss on the banner for just about everybody. Dash Super Soul Break, he can exploit weakness through Chain Thandaga, but I'm going to mostly put this under the category of not really thrilled to get this unless unless you have his Burst Soul Break, in which case it's a really nice thing to carry to lightning vulnerable full throttle fights. It does also give him boost magic, that's true. Right, this is a full throttle for Dash. Next up, we have our first legitimately good relic in Edward's Burst Soul Break. It's a Holy Imperil. It doesn't do any damage on cast, but that's fine because Edward doesn't really do any damage anyway. He's a buffing support. And it also gives plus 50% attack to the entire party, as well as imperiling the entire enemy party. So that's actually really nice, because holy damage in this game is totally skewed toward the physical side. There is very little magical. You can tell by the you can tell by the how many Sid Reigns you see in the Soul Cage multiplayer, because it's a fight where he's wholly vulnerable, and you want to use mages so you don't make him hit himself with fire. And there's only 2 holy mages in the game other than white mages, and that'd be Sid Reigns and Hope. And no one likes Hope, so it's mostly just Sid Reigns. However, Holy Physical is a completely different story. There's tons of them. Knights are one of the largest, classes throughout all of the Final Fantasies, and there are many in just about every realm, not including 7. So this is an actual good Imperil. Oh yeah, Cloud of Darkness, that's true. Much better than Hope. Fusoya's Super Soul Break sucks. This is a miss for everybody, unless you are a Fusoya fan, and in which case, I feel for you. I don't blame you, because Fusoya is awesome. However, DNA does not like Fusoya, and has made him one of the worst characters in the entire game. So that's unfortunate. The worst part of this is it's a Dark Imperil on Fusoya, who only has access to Black Magic 5 and White Magic 5. So you know what that means. The most damaging ability Fusoya has access to that can exploit Dark is Darkra. And right behind that, Drainga. So yeah, sorry. This is our boob of the banner. Next up, we have Sid from Final Fantasy IV, who actually, it isn't actually that bad, because Sid from Final Fantasy IV is a machinist, and machinists have access to one of the best Lightning 5 stars in the entire game, with Tempest Sight. So you could turn him into a viable Lightning Imperil on a physical Lightning team with Tempest Knight. So that's actually not awful. I think the problem here with Sid's is is there a lot of lightning? Laguna's is excellent. Laguna's is just a straight everything across the board upgrade. We got Garnet. Franz is awful. Lightning BSB2. Yeah, there isn't actually a lot of Lightning Imperil in the game yet. So, Sid 4, let's think about this through the eyes of Guy, and the fact that his Imperil will be good, but in a time when there are much better Imperils for Earth. Is that the same? Does the same apply for Sid from Final Fantasy IV? Show me Soul Breaks. Unreleased Imperil Lightning Soul Breaks. Desh in his USB is actually really good. But that's magical. Prompto. Prompto and Laguna would definitely be your premier Imperil Lightning for physical, huh? So there's not many, but the Lagunas and Promptos are very, very good. Very good. Oh, well, Lightning BSB too. I don't know why I forgot that. That's also excellent. So, I don't know. I think those are 3 extremely good options for physical Lightning Imperil. So I probably wouldn't be too thrilled to get this, even though he does have access to the Tempest Snipe. Moving on, we have Yang Super Soul Break, which runs into the same issue as Guy's. I mean, it's practically the same thing. However, Yang does have a Burst Soul Break out that can exploit this very well, so I'm going to put it in the same category as Dash. Dash has a very high damage Lightning Burst, and Yang has a very high damage Earth Burst. So they're complementary to those, and if you have their bursts, then you wouldn't mind picking these up. Next up, we have Ferris's, and while Ferris is one of the best characters in the entire game, and she can exploit the weakness with Dash and Slash, the 5-star Thief ability, the problem with this is you're mostly going to be looking at these Imperils for the Magicite dungeons, and not only does the Wind Magicite dungeon discourage the use of physical, at the same time, Ferris gets a USB 2 on one of the best banners in the future, near future, like 2.5 months. That also does Wind Imperil in a much, much better form. And this also occurs on that banner. So, yeah. There's a lot of things going on wrong with this. It could be useful. It's just either not useful for you or probably not going to be useful to you for long. And it creates a dupe on a really good banner. So I wouldn't be thrilled with this, personally. Next up, we have Galoof's BSB, which is just really good. I mean, I'll go and look at this because it was one of the top tier options, and anything that I have listed here, we're going to make sure to take a look at. I think it's one of the better Fire Imperils in the entire game. We have Sweet Sorrow. 6 single attacks, causes Imperil Fire 20%, and grants haste and burst mode. Sure. Got a pretty typical entry. And the commands are where it shines. It's super utility. While generally you want to focus on doing damage with your Imperiler, Galoof does it fine with his 4 single attacks and 2 group attacks. He does it exactly how you want to, not excessive, like someone say Alina or Balthier. Balthier is going to be released in 9 days. So that's that. But what he does bring to the table is a extremely good utility heal, where it restores HP to the lowest HP percentage ally for 25% of their maximum HP. So by exploiting weakness with his commands, and then recasting and doing the same, you're also providing a very, very, very useful ability to your party. That anybody with Rafa's BSB knows that this heal is a very useful thing, and improves your survivability. And when you can improve your survivability, that allows you to get a little more greedy with dealing damage, and that's I guess that's the whole point, really. Alright, so that is one of the best options we have on the banner. Fire Imperil for Galoof. Next up, we have Xdeath's BSB. This is one of the many Darkness Imperil bursts. And you're just going to see this often. We've got Dire Heal. I have this, even though it's a BSB, and mostly what I did up here was I would pair something up with its a Super Soul Break, but I am actually going to add in the ability up here if it's a Mage Burst, because they don't have access to Life Siphon, so they can't get out their first Imperil without exploiting weakness, and that is his best way to do it. Dark Zone probably does more damage, but Dire Heal, you know, like we just talked about with Galoof, passive healing from people other than your healer is very, very powerful. Alright, next up we have Locke's BSB, which is another Fire Imperil BSB, and it's not bad. It's just, it's pushed out a little bit. I mean, I like Locke. I like what he brings to the table. He has access to Ruby Spike if you need damage outside of his bursts. Ruby Spike is a Shooter 5 ability, and Locke will be getting access to Shooter 5. It's a high damage, better than Spellblade damage, fire ability. It has a Mug attack and magic command, but that doesn't do fire damage, unfortunately. So it's similar to Yuffie's Imperil Water BSB-1 in that regard, but hers actually does water damage on the command, which is really nice. And we used that last night while we were killing time with our water team on Soul Cage. So I do like this burst, and it'd probably be good. It'd be a good replacement, because I'm probably not going to be pulling for Balthiers or Alina's. So if I don't get Galoofs, then Locks would be a good... It's just, it's a good burst. Imperil Fire burst. Just far down the list, that's all. There's just a lot of good options there. Leo Super Soul Break. You know what? This is a really good Imperil, because it is actually high damage. And it's easy for Knights to exploit Holy Weakness in many different ways with either Saint Cross, Divine Cross, or Guardbringer. The problem here is Holy has two of the best Imperilers in the game, in Beatrix and Agrius, and they Imperil so well that there usually is no more room for another Imperiler. And both of those Burst Soul Breaks are on this banner. So this is a good option. A very good option for Imperil Holy if you don't have access to Beatrix or Agrius. You're just going to wish that you have access to Beatrix or Agrius. And that's what I think about that. Edgar's Super. Yeah, there's no Magicite Dungeon for poison. He can't even exploit it with a single target high damage attack. The best thing he's got access to is the Area of Effect Bio Grenade, which, you know, it isn't a bad 5-star ability, and it takes dirt orbs to use. The problem is it's just not going to be useful. Next up, we have Zax's Burst Soul Break, and I have that marked as a top tier option, and there is a good reason for that. So we have Zax's Meteor Shots, which just does Imperil Wind, random. And the commands are where it shines. Where are you, Zach? There he is. 4 single, 2 group. Seems plain until you move into the cast times. The cast times of 0.6 seconds is extremely good for an Imperil, because the faster you can attack, the more Soul Break you're generating, which allows you to recast your burst. And that's basically what you're aiming for with an Imperil burst, is you want to cast it as many times as you can so you can just keep on stacking the Imperil. The more Imperils you get, the more damage. So not only are you doing extra damage by attacking quickly, but you're also doing more damage because you're stacking the Imperil for the rest of the team to exploit. This is one of the better Imperils in the game. One of the pitfalls of this Imperil is that it is wind damage. And being wind means it is not really well suited for Magicite dungeons. However, there's a counterpoint to that, and the fact that Zac and Cloud are very much the most powerful wind characters, physical wind characters in the game, and they appear on the same banner, which happens in about 2 weeks. And all of this stuff goes together perfectly, and this doesn't occur on that banner. So you would actually be really happy to pick it up here, because it would perfectly complement a pulls on the Cloud USB banner. And Cloud's USB and Zac together, I think you just need Cloud's USB, but both of them together essentially make the Golem fight and for Magicite, which is supposed to not be friendly to physical, beatable in record time with physical characters. So that's a strong counterpoint that even though this is a physical wind burst, it's actually still good. Because it can play a part in getting you through the Golem fight. So next up, we have Rufus's Super Soul Break, which is not good. It's not exploitable by him by useful abilities at the moment. We will eventually be getting Crimson Cross and the dual Drain Strike for Darkness characters. The problem is that they're not meant to be used in this way. There are soul breaks that are meant to combo with stuff like Crimson Cross. You don't want to be using this every turn with the character, especially Rufus. This is just not useful, and also does occur on that Cloud USB banner. So getting this would just make you cry tears of despair if you planned on pulling on the Cloud USB banner, because this would be not only a relic that you didn't want, but a dupe of a relic you didn't want in the first place. So this is a miss for just about everybody. Next up, we have Laguna's Super Soul Break, which is the only Ice Imperil in the game, but not that great right now. It's fine. It's really fun to use because it's the only Ice Imperil. You can really wow some people because no one else in the game can do what he can do with this. The problem is he doesn't have a way to exploit it, so you just need to Life Siphon with it, which isn't as good as exploiting weakness with your attacks instead of Life Siphon. But Laguna does get access to Sharpshooter 5, which does get a 5-star ability called Icicle Shot that allows Laguna to exploit ice weakness. So while this is a interesting and neat Ice Imperil right now, not an optimal for like Magicite dungeon purposes, but actually does become optimal for Magicite dungeon purposes with the release of Icicle Shot. So that would be a really good thing to have. And Ice Imperil stays very rare into the future, and I guess that's worth taking a look at, just to show you how rare it is. So you can tell if you're going to be pulling on a banner for Ice in the future. We have one of 3 hits on the spreadsheet. We have Laguna's. We have Laguna's USB, which is on not the next Final Fantasy VIII event, but the Final Fantasy VIII event after that. It's a very Ice-themed banner with Laguna and Diaz. And this is a really good Imperil Ice. So if you should take a look at that banner. I'll actually link it in chat right now for you. But if you want to skip it or something, that still makes Laguna's Super Soul Break Ice a good call. Oops, that link is incorrect. There you go. I added a plus on the end for some reason. Alright, and the last Imperil Ice would be Fran's USB, which is actually really good. Granting Quick Cast 2 to all allies is a really nice buff to add on top of the Imperil Ice, and Fran is a sharpshooter as well, so she can take advantage of Imperil Ice. This is really good. The issue with it is the banner it is on is not terribly good, and not a lot of people are going to be pulling for it. So, though we get 2 really good USBs for Imperil Ice, other than Laguna's Super Soul Break, the problem is they're not on extremely pullable banners, so there aren't going to be many of you that end up with it. So it actually brings us full circle back to Laguna's Freezing Barrage, and it makes this an actual decent Imperil Ice. Oh, it still works with Plus? I'm so proud of the internet. It's come so far. Alright, next up we have Laguna's BSB, and we see that Laguna is turned into an Imperil machine. As we saw, his USB is Ice Imperil, and now his BSB is Lightning Imperil, and it is a top tier option for Lightning Imperil. Split Laser is 8 random attacks, causes Imperil Lightning, haste and burst mode. We have 4 random ranged, causes Paralyze and Silence, 7%. This is not good. However, it's useful if you don't want to do what you're going to need to do to make the second command work. And that is grant instant machinist abilities 2 to the user. It is only a single attack, but trust me, it is absolutely worth it. What you're going to want to be doing with this is you cast the burst, you use this ability once, and then you instantly use 2 Tempest Snipes. It turns him into an extremely high damage Lightning Imperiler, because Tempest Snipe is such a strong lightning ability at 5-star. So, a lot of honing involved here, but it turns him into an extremely good Imperil Lightning, and I would definitely be happy to pull this. Next up, we have Diaz Super Soul Break 2, which is just a basic single target Dark Imperil. It's okay. I don't want to downplay it because it's on Adia, who is one of the best ice mage in the game. But otherwise, it's just your normal Super Soul Break, really. It's got a cool animation. Next up, we have Zidane's Burst Soul Break. Final Fantasy IX, wind damage. So this is just bad. Not only is it physical wind, which is not good if your name isn't Zack or Cloud, but it's on Zidane, which was kind of fallen behind. He does get a little better with his USB. It'll be released in an estimated 4 months. But the problem here with his BSB-1 is that his commands aren't wind damage, so he has no good way to exploit the weakness that he creates or deepens other than through the use of Dash and Slash, which isn't a very good option. It's just a bad option. One of the 2 bad bursts for Imperil. Next up, we have Steiner's Super Soul Break 2. Yes, to Jeffner. They're available through the entire fest. We have... It's Final Fantasy IX, it's on armor, it's Fire Imperil, and he can exploit it with Blazing Twin Strike. Sure, fine. I mean, it's basic, and it's what you're looking for, really. So, a good Fire Imperil option if you're forced into it. However, there are some great Fire Imperil... God, that was an English fail. Fire Imperil bursts available that make this not as good. However, it is a good fallback if you need it, because Steiner can exploit those fire weaknesses really well. It is also a good complementary soul break to his burst soul break. He has a very strong fire burst, and this goes together with that really well for full throttle. Right, if you have access to his BSB, you want to be using that instead. How about I just add 2 points to English right now? Done. Okay, next up we have Kuja's BSB, which is another one of those magical dark imperils. However, it is really good. It is focused more on dealing damage than it is Imperil, but, you know, that's fine. It does so much damage because the commands are boosted by you being doomed that it can rival some attached dark bursts for dealing dark damage. as well as the fact that it's imperiling, so it's increasing your entire party's darkness damage. So it's actually really good. The problem with Kuja here is that he has no way to get it out other than with Dire Heal or Dark Zone. And that isn't a problem elsewhere for other people, but a problem for Darkness because there is one Darkness Imperil Burst that rules them all, and we'll get to that in a few. Garnet's BSB2 is a nice hybrid option because it doesn't deal any damage, but instead it buffs the entire party's attack and... Ooh, where'd you go? It buffs the entire party's attack and magic plus 30%, so this could actually viably be used on a physical or magical team, which has a lot of value attached to it. Beyond that, I believe it is the only Lightning Imperil Burst, so it's got that going for it too. Lightning Imperil Magical Burst. Yes, Max Rages, Nabats. And yeah, right, Will, this is a good relic as well. It is a plus Lightning Staff, which is one of the few lightning damage increasing relics available to mages. So this is a good one. I'd be happy to get this. Next up, we have the first of the Holy Duo in Beatrix's BSB. It's just really, really awesome. We have Knight Protector. Group attacks and inflicts some Holy Imperil. Where are you? Oh god, I'm looking at Agrius. What am I doing? Beatrix, Knight Protector. 2 single attacks, grants Sentinel to user. 2 single attacks, resistance plus 40%. I guess I have to say it. I'm obligated to say it every time. Beatrix and Agrius have almost identical bursts. The differences are Beatrix does a little more damage, but Agrius has a holy element on her second command, so you're not punished for using it, while Beatrix does, and she is punished by a lower amount of soul break generation. It's not that much. If you have... Yeah, actually it is if you have a striker equipped. Because these commands will generate 100 soul break points if you're exploiting vulnerability, while this one won't. 100 if you're exploiting vulnerability with a striker, but you don't use a striker with her, so she isn't punished that much for it. You usually use Lionheart with Beatrix or Agrius because of the Sentinel attached, and so they make great choices to be tanks as well as Imperilers. So anyway, this is just a really good option because what you're looking to do here is Imperil the boss, and then even though you're looking at 2 single attacks on both of the abilities, it's kind of similar to Laguna's, how he uses Tempest Snipe. What Beatrix and Agrius do instead is they grant Sentinel to themselves, which gives them the ability to taunt as well as increase their defense by 200%. And then they use an ability called Guardbringer, which is even more powerful than Tempest Snipe, just not in as many attacks. So they're a extremely high damage tank Holy Imperil, and this is why though I like Leo's Holy Imperil, his Super Soul Break, the problem is that just Beatrix and Agrius are unrivaled in their ability to Holy Imperil and do damage at the same time. Next up, we have Kamari's BSB. And what? What is this? Top tier option on Kamari? Yeah, it's true. Aqua Breath. Group attacks, Imperil Water. And its commands are for single range, restores HP to lowest HP ally for 20% of their maximum HP. That's great. It's just like Galoof's. It's Galoof's, but for water. And water is a much harder element to get stuff for. So you could say that due to this command and the existence of the burst, this may actually just be better. A better pull, at least. But they're they rest in the same category for where they are. He unfortunately doesn't have a group option. Has Smart Ether 1 instead. Probably not going to use this very much. If you're using this, you're doing it for the Imperil water. And I don't know if Kimahri gets access to Shooter, but I don't believe he does. So I don't think he has access to a water option. So, yeah. Dragoon 5. Oh, he has Black Magic 3. He can use water. Huh? No, so he doesn't have a water option available to him. So you're just going to be doing this single target attack. The second attack probably isn't going to be terribly useful for you. Next up, we have Riku and her Burst Soul Break. The burst itself is definitely not as good as Kimahri's. However, Riku is a much more versatile character than Kimahri, and she does have a water option in Sapphire Shot, the 5-star shooter ability. And she can do a ton of stuff as well. Not only can she do that stuff, but she can also act as the support for your team as well, because she has access to Dancer 5. And she just has one of the widest ability selections in the entire game. So she can be a Water Imperiler and do, what you need her to do otherwise. And she can always exploit the vulnerability. I believe that Sapphire Shot is stronger than her burst commands. We'll go check it out. We're already in the Final Fantasy X section, so... Yeah, 2 group attacks at 0.7 multiplier each. That's really weak. You're probably going to be wanting to use Sapphire Shot with her to exploit for damage, unless you have Riku's Legend Materia that increases her capability with Machinist abilities, which her burst is. And she does always have access to Mug Bloodlust on her command. She always has access to Mug Bloodlust in her ability pool as well, since she's a Thief 5. Because Riku can do everything that the game has thrown at us. So, that's a tough decision. Like, if I was forced to make a decision between Kimahri's and Riku's. Because Riku is just an overall great character in the game, while Kimahri would be just your Water Imperiler. It's a tough one. But personally, for the sake of this draw, I want both. So they'd be both wins for me. Seymour BSB. Same deal as X-Deaths. The problem is just, instead of doing increased amounts of damage, and with X-Death he has a command 2 that gives him Doom, so you don't have to carry Memento Mori. Seymour has Status Infliction. So he's the worst of them, unfortunately. Next up, we have Balthier's Super Soul Break, which is actually really old, really old, but still a good Fire Imperil, because it is random target. Back in the day, we used to make fun of the fact it was random target, but little did we know that that was actually a good thing for Imperils. Random target, Fire Imperil. And he has access to 2 different types of fire damage. With Ruby Spike, I believe he doesn't have access to Shooter 5 now, but he will. And Blazing Twin Strike, the 5-star Spellblade ability. It is, it was the first Imperil. Yeah. And it is actually still good. But fire is a crowded Imperil landscape. But it doesn't make these bad. It doesn't make them bad. If they're what you have, I wouldn't complain with having them. However, next up we have come to Franz. Franz gets a really good USB Imperil Ice. This one, however, is not. Franz has no way to deal lightning damage. It has no Life Siphon access, so she needs to Wrath this out if you want to accelerate it. Which means that you can't use single target or single stat attack buffs, otherwise she will overwrite it, and she herself will deal crap damage and just increase the damage of your party. This is just a really terrible option for Lightning Imperil, unfortunately. Gabranth BSB is a top-tier option. It is the best physical Dark Imperil. I know that's not saying much because there isn't many of them. I think his competition is Rufus. However, if he did have real competition, he'd probably blow them away as well. And that is for the same reason that we liked Zax. Gabranth, and it is called Innocence. I mean, how can you not like it? And Gabranth is kind of a badass. To have something called Innocence is just... It's just fun. He's a fun guy. He laughs a lot. So we got 4 single attacks. That's not that much. And he's got a Drain Strike, which we don't really care about. However, the 4 single attacks is a ninja cast speed. That is half cast. It's not as fast as Zac, but still very close to it. Zac's was 0.60, and his is 0.83, which is half of the normal 1.65. So that's what you're looking for. Give me a fast way to exploit this weakness, and let me cast it again. Help out the team. So he's a great Imperiler. Next up, we have Lightning BSB2. It's a top-tier option for the exact same reason that Gabranth is. She has a carbon copy of Gabranth's BSB, except instead of the Drain Strike that Gabranth has on his Command 2, Lightning has a group attack, which is definitely better because Drain Strike's not terribly useful. The group attack, however, is, because there will be times when you want to attack in a area of effect instead of single target. So that's it's a nice thing having that option available to her. So one of the, probably the best Lightning physical Imperil for dealing, for inflicting Imperil. I think Laguna's is probably more damaging because of the Tempest Snipe. Instant casting 2 Tempest Snipes is really powerful. However, Lightning attacks faster because she has that ninja cast speed going at all times. So she will inflict Imperil faster, most likely. Next up, we have Fang's BSB. Not much to say here. It's really basic. It's one of the most basic bursts, is where it just has a regular 1.65 cast time, 4-hit wind first command, and the second command is same cast time, 2-hit area of effect. But it's for wind, bad Magicite option. Her name isn't Zac or Cloud, so while it's fine, it's serviceable. It just kind of falls behind everything. Next up, we have Sid Rain's Super Soul Break. Sid Rains does not have access to a holy ability not named Diara. This is really just a complimentary Soul Break to be used with his burst. That's it. Otherwise, no. Yeah. I suppose you could use this in full throttle 3 times and hope the fight's over by the time you use it 3 times. Yeah, that's not useful. Next up, Nabat BSB. Last but not least in the Mage Darkness Imperils. She has Wrath. It is the top tier option. We're gonna go take a look at it. Random Imperil Earth, sure. So where this succeeds and the others don't is the Wrath access allows her to use an RM of your choice instead of actually it allows you to use a striker, and I suppose that is the biggest factor for all these Mage Darkness Imperils, is because characters like Lightning can carry a striker and Life Siphon out, or exploit vulnerability and get up there really fast, while Nabat can in 2 turns get this Imperil out, and yeah, really good. Anyway, her commands are 4 single attacks and 2 group attacks, of a decent multiplier. Why does this take so long to move over? 6.0, it's not that high. So we're looking at like a 9.0 and a 6.0 here. And that's important because I don't know how the Mathcraft works for using this command instead of her first command. So you're doing less damage, spread over less hits. So you have a 20k maximum. However, the 20% chance to inflict darkness Imperil 10% seems nice. And I don't know. I don't know how well it works. However, anyway, this is fine if you want to use it, but it really is her Wrath access that it makes everything worth it. She just, she does the Imperil things a lot and very quickly. Nope, that's not what I was looking for. Bubble Bobble. Next up, we have one of the worst burst soul breaks on this banner. It's so bad that I don't really even want it. Thancred's BSB is a Fire Imperil. He doesn't have access to fire. Apparently, he does not get Sharpshooter in the upgrade. The commands suck. I mean, they suck so bad. I want you to look at them. Kasatsu Katan. So he can do 6 attacks theoretically if he has any physical blink. However, you need to use his weak as hell command 2 to grant himself physical blink. He has access to Ninja Fire. Well, that's fine, but he has access to no physical fire. Yeah, it is something, because that would allow him to not have to use Mako Might. He could just exploit for low damage to start the fight. It's not a good option, but it is an option. So anyway, neither of his commands are very good unless you have Physical Blink 1 and then his command 1 is good. It can do 6 attacks. And you'd think with the way Thancred is built that he would have faster cast times, but he doesn't. Anyway, it's a really bad burst. And last we have Agrises. I won't go into it because I went into Beatrix's and they really are basically identical except for that Holy Imperil on Agrises' second command as well as her first command. Or not Holy Imperil, but Holy Element. So she exploits with whatever she's doing. So if you are using the Sentinel and taunting holy attacks and you want to boost your resistance, you shouldn't be penalized for it. Deal more damage by exploiting, and you'll generate more soul break by exploiting. So what's everyone, we have anything that I missed in chat? I haven't been paying that much attention to it. They have done Thancred a disservice. Putting on Physical Blink isn't bad, but that's not his purpose here. It's only Physical Blink for him, so doesn't do all that much. It's a Fire Imperil, and it's really bad at it. It's as bad at his job. Balthier does need to be died for Spellblade 5. But he will have access to the Shooter 5. He does get direct upgrade to Sharpshooter 5. Yes.